Hi, everyone. Shelly Ashwell here. It's a privilege to be with you. I have the privilege to lead our wireline customer service organization for all of the regions in the world that support SAMPath. And it's a great honor. We have customers in about 120 countries that we serve. And we serve every large enterprise business that we have service with around the world. So I'm used to being a person in the organization who's traveled, at least a couple 100,000 miles a year. And so I've spent a lot of my time in front of customers and our employee teams around the world, learning more how we can effectively serve our customers. And as we went into the pandemic in March, 100% of that model changed. And now all of our communication is highly done over video conference calls, obviously one-on-one communication. And so we find ourselves in this environment where today's communication matters really more than ever. And it requires us to sort of take a step back and think about how are we communicating effectively as leaders in the business? How do we communicate and really maximize our message when we have an opportunity to engage with either a customer outside of Verizon or one of our internal customers within the company? I thought I would share with you a couple tips that certainly have hit home with me in the last 2 to 3 quarters about things I'm trying to do differently to communicate even better with our internal and external stakeholders. One thing that comes to mind is certainly being present and being engaged. And I think about that because we have so much to do every day that making sure that when we are on conference calls, video calls, communication calls with our teammates, that we're really present and we're paying attention, especially when you're on video calls. If you see certain people that are multitasking, working on their laptop or desktop, and maybe not being present as much as needed. And certainly in this time, I find that making sure that, you show up and that you leave an impression on that forum, whatever that forum might be, is really important. But just as important as being engaged and being present is a quote that I love to share, which is called share the air. And share the air means that we give an opportunity for everyone to speak their voice when it's a communication that is seeking everyone to be heard, right? And making sure that you share the air with your coworkers and your peers and allow everyone to participate in communication since we have such limited time in some of our key forums. I also feel it's strong to communicate with purpose, and just as much as you want to share the air, you also don't want to speak just to have your voice heard, right? Make sure that we're obviously speaking with intent and with purpose. The second thing that comes to mind is how we spend our time in communication and really balancing our conference calls with one-on-one time. I know a lesson that I've taken from Hans over the last couple of years is to analyze at the end of the week how you spent your time each day and making sure that you're balanced across one-on-one communication with team communication, but also time to just think and strategize. At this time, again, when we're working, many, many hours in a given day, in a given week, you can find yourself getting into a routine that's comfortable, but is it really effective? And what I think about there is just making sure that you go back each week and you look at how you spent your time, and that you're not just showing up on calls because someone scheduled it on your calendar, but that you're showing up because you really need to get something out of that forum, or you have something that you really want to contribute to that discussion. And I think really making sure that that you're spending your time the way you choose, and when you show up in a communication forum that's important, people know why you're there, right? You're making a great decision about the investment of your time. One of the other things I love to talk about is McKinsey, our McKinsey partners, taught me a great lesson in some of the transformation work that we've been doing over the last year. And it's the what, the how, and the why. And I love this because communication that we do in presentations, written form, customer presentations or pitches that we're doing for new services or solutions, all of that narrative has to flow into what is the message that we want to articulate. How is it going to be beneficial to the customer, or how is it going to be delivered the how of the message or the how of the technology, and then the why behind it. And I think we tend to do the first one and the second one really well because we're operational leaders and we're technical. But the third one, in terms of the why, is really important. If you're like me, when you received your Pulse survey feedback, we often have our employees and our partners tell us that we want to learn more about the why behind we do actions within our business. So taking the time to make sure that we communicate the why in our messaging and that we have a very well thought out storyline as we communicate with, again, intent and purpose is really important. And it's actually a guideline that I use now for all of my Shelly presentations. You'll often have me talk about the what, the how, and the why. And finally, I would say, collaboration could never be more important than it is now. We had the pleasure, as you know, of having Deepak Chopra on one of our leadership forums back in the summer, and he talked about a quote where failure often happens alone, but success happens when people come together as one team. And I think about that often in terms of just making sure that we're collaborating with our partners to achieve great results, and making sure that we take time to listen to one another's feedback. When it's time to make a decision, of course, we have to be accountable for those decisions, but having the opportunity to hear from our peers and gather input to help us make the best decision for whatever it is that we're driving is super critical. One of the things that I really live by is making sure that we leave an impression with people. There are so many things in our environment that we can't control, but we certainly can control how we communicate and how we make people feel. And it's a time when we need each other now more than ever. So really make sure that you're listening to those around you, gathering the best input that you can, and that you're making a difference for Team Verizon. Thank you.